Welcome to Subramani. Many of you would have heard the word Gordian knot. The Gordian knot is an European concept. There was a knot which was the most difficult knot, and there was a saying that if you could untie that knot, you could rule whole of Asia. So one man, Alexander, whom I don't know why we call him Alexander the Great, tried solving it. He couldn't solve it, so he just took his sword and cut it. Right, that was his way of solving it. So sometimes you can do a lot of analysis, going to the extent of doing analysis paralysis and not being able to come with a solution. Very important thing which you learn while studying about behavioral finance is that your actions depend more than all the intellectual effort that you put in. You can sit and put in a lot of effort, but then realize that you are not investing. So even a badly executed but executed strategy is better than all the greatest strategy that you can make but just not implement it, right? So you can, so the very important thing is for a person to protect himself or herself from himself or herself, right? Like what Graham said, the biggest enemy of man is man himself. So if you are not implementing whatever you know, right? I mean, how will you resist the market fear if you can't resist from eating one sweet? Imagine a sweet lying there and you think you should eat it. You realize it is like one girl told me, actress, that it is 30 seconds on the lips and 30 years on the hips, right? That's what a sweet does. You know the consequences and still you fall for it. I do, right? So it is not that I'm saying that you do and I don't. I do. I can't resist myself when I see sweets. So that's a fact. So similarly, protecting yourself from from the mistakes that you make is perhaps the most important thing that you have to do. Very many people think that investing in let's say cheapest index funds, right? So somebody is already invested in a index fund costing 0.10 and new NFO comes at 0.06. You think, by shifting I will save that 0.04. That's not such a great thing to be doing, right? So a good fund manager who is managing an active fund is bound to charge you. I mean, I don't even know what kind of charges I'm paying in, say, an Invesco infrastructure fund or a DSP small cap fund or an ICICI Prudential opportunities fund. But all these funds I see now, I mean, this is fresh. I'm seeing 30% CAGR over the last 3-4 years. Yes, the entry point was 2020. But I mean, these are SIP returns, so right, so 2020 July to September or maybe April to September I must have got good benefits, but after that the market has gone up. But perhaps that for that period I'm being overcompensated, but I'm just saying these fund managers will not come cheap, right? So why would you think that the index fund will outperform these funds or whatever? It doesn't really matter. If you are managing the money for your family and you have a lot of money and you don't need the money, you don't realize that your siblings need the money that your parents have, right? Suppose your parents are sitting on 5 crores, 8 crores, 10 crores and they are 91 and 87. I'm sure they don't need that much of money. So it is easier for you to do some disbursement to a sibling who needs it and the other siblings could wait. No, these are not things which an index fund is going to tell you or do it for you. So this is what an advisor does for you. So find out what you think you can do by yourself. And so let me quote what Ray Dalio says. I have found it helpful to think of my life as it were a game or a puzzle that I need to solve. By solving the puzzle, I get a gem of a principle that helps me avoid the same problem in the future. So obviously, copying from this, what I do when I look at my portfolio and I see that the market is going nowhere or it is going down, I then look at the portfolio of some of the top fund managers whom I follow. I'm not naming them because there are 3-4 of them and I keep saying their names again and again. So I look at their portfolio, I see what they have bought, I see what is the date of entry when that share made into their portfolio. I then see how long have they held on, whether they have sold in between. Then I also look at my own portfolio and realize that some portion of which I have done as a buy and hold, I am getting not so great returns, but some portion which I do buy and hold but also do trade on the basis of delivery, I find my returns are higher. So sometimes I start trading more, sometimes I keep investing and I don't change. Like for example, if it was an MRF or an LMW or a Lakshmi Machine Works or Vent India, these are not shares in which I would ever deal, simply because these are very violent in their price behavior. They could go up and just stay there and not come down at all, so I may not be able to cover it again. And these are shares which I have bought with a lot of pain over a long period of time. MRF, of course, I've said this, I have sold off, but some of the others I've accumulated this over a long period of time. Vent, for example, is now 14,000. My first purchase of this was at 58 rupees. There is just no connection, of course, no rights, no bonuses, but from 58 to 15,000, if something has moved, chances are it will there will be some violent behavior in this. So there is no point in trying to trade in such shares. So this is again a learning that some of these high price shares, you don't, Procter and Gamble, you don't trade in it, you either hold it or you sell it off, right? So some of these things that you learn is by your own behavior, your own mistakes, and or reading books like Delio and seeing the fund performance of good fund managers, right? So what I do is also keep recording the mistakes that I make, etc., which could be very useful for you, and it's actually very useful for me, kind of mistakes that I make, and we all make mistakes, right? So then I also talk to some other investors and find what kind of mistakes they make, and I realize, buying too small a quantity, selling because the returns are high. For example, the IRR driven investor would buy a share at 10 rupees, and when he gets some 18%, he'll say, oh, this is way above the 12% return which I was expecting, so let me sell. This is not a bad strategy, but then portions of my portfolio, I'm not even looking at return for 10 years, then the IRR does not really matter, right? So I'm not expecting any dividend from an Indigo or Zomato, I mean sensible dividend. So does it really matter what is my IRR? No, because I'm building a portfolio over a longer period of time. So if you ask, when I was Warren Buffett in various times says it's more about behavior and not so much about your intellect. I mean, that's what he means, right? So I think there are enough statements which he has made. Go and read it, analyze it. Don't believe everything that Warren Buffett says. And over a period of time, he has made a lot of statements, many of those which are actually wrong, and some are pure marketing geniuses. So don't believe everything, but still go and read. So one of the things which he says is temperament is more important than IQ, right? So various forms have been told to you. The stomach is more important than the brain. Will you be able to stomach the fluctuations which happen? So learn to do that. How I have learned to do that is by seeing the portfolio of fund managers and saying if they are staying invested in these shares, there's no harm in me staying invested. I mean, Sun Pharma is, I bought Sun Pharma at 300, I bought it at 800, I bought it at 900, I've sold it at 1250. I've done all kinds of things in Sun Pharma, but a core portion of Sun Pharma, Supreme Industries, Reliance, HDFC, now it's HDFC Bank, these are shares, Carborundum Universal, Cholamandalam, EID Parry, these are going to be there in my portfolio permanently, right? I may trade in 100 shares, but if you have 30,000 shares and you trade in 100 shares, it doesn't do anything, it does not move the needle at all. I may be dealing even in 500 shares, but still doesn't move the needle. So base shares quantity will never go down. Similarly for a Reliance, similarly for an HDFC Bank, the base volume does not go down. So I do trade. So some of these learnings you keep talking about, you keep repeating, you act on it, sometimes you don't act on it, you make mistakes, then you see what other people do. These are all the ways in which you learn about investing in the equity market. Thank you.